You're about to find out that getting a tattoo might be one of the most invasive things you can do to your body. And no, we're not talking about the needle. We're talking about what actually happens inside you. Let's start 5,300 years ago. In 1991, hikers found a mummified body preserved in ice in the Alps. Scientists named him Ötzi. His skin, remarkably intact after over 5 millennia, still carried something else: 61 tattoos made from soot rubbed into small cuts. 5,300 years later, that ink is still visibly embedded in his skin. Whatever your body does with tattoo ink, it clearly doesn't fully remove it. Not in a lifetime, not in 50 lifetimes. So what exactly is going on under there for that entire span of time? So you got inked. Congratulations. You now have between 50 and 100 million particles of foreign material permanently embedded in your skin. Let that sink in for a second. But here's where it gets interesting. Your body doesn't just accept this, it fights back. And the war between your immune system and your tattoo ink is happening right now, whether you got tattooed last week or 20 years ago. When that needle punches your skin thousands of times per second, it's doing more than just depositing ink. It's creating an injury. A deliberate one, sure, but an injury nonetheless. Your body responds like it always does when something foreign invades it. It panics. Within seconds, immune cells called macrophages, literally big eaters, rush to the site and start surrounding the ink particles like tiny soldiers responding to an invasion. Their job is simple: engulf the foreign material and either break it down or wall it off. This is exactly what they do with bacteria, splinters, or anything else that shouldn't be there. But here's the problem. Tattoo ink particles are incredibly small. We're talking about nanoparticles, some measuring less than 100 nanometers across. Some are so small they slip past macrophages entirely, past your skin's defenses undetected. And that's when things get weird. These particles start traveling through your lymphatic system to your lymph nodes. In 2017, researchers using an intense X-ray beam at a European synchrotron facility examined the lymph nodes of tattooed cadavers and found exactly this: nanoparticles of tattoo pigment, titanium dioxide, chromium, and other elements had migrated well beyond the skin and settled permanently inside lymphatic tissue. Some research suggests they might even reach your liver and spleen. Your body is literally trying to process what you've voluntarily injected into yourself, and it's not entirely sure how. Now, before you panic and book an emergency removal appointment, let's talk about what we actually know versus what we think we know, because the truth is more complicated than the headlines suggest. Here's what's certain. Tattoo pigments break down differently depending on the color. Black ink, made from carbon, is relatively stable. Carbon is inert, chemically unreactive, which is part of why it's been the go-to tattoo pigment for thousands of years. But other colors? That's where your immune system has to do actual work. Red inks made from mercury sulfide, for example, can break down into ionic mercury. Yellow inks, often made from cadmium or azo compounds, can break down into different compounds entirely, some of which are known to degrade further when exposed to sunlight. Your body is essentially decomposing these materials over time, slowly, chemically, without your permission or awareness. But does this cause actual harm? This is where science gets frustratingly honest. We don't have enough long-term data to say definitively. Most tattoo studies only follow people for a few years, not decades, and the ones that do suggest something genuinely surprising. Most people don't develop serious health problems from tattoos. That doesn't mean nothing is happening. Your body is constantly trying to eliminate these particles. Some escape through sweat, others are carried away by immune cells and sequestered in lymph nodes, where they can remain for life. That's not necessarily dangerous, but it is permanent. There's a second type of immune cell involved here too, dendritic cells, which act less like garbage collectors and more like messengers. When they encounter ink particles, they can carry fragments to your lymph nodes and effectively show them to the rest of your immune system, triggering a broader immune response. In most people, this settles into a quiet truce. But in some people, this process goes wrong. The immune system treats a specific pigment as a persistent threat and mounts a continuous low-level attack against it, a type 4 hypersensitivity reaction. This is what causes the raised, itchy, sometimes years-delayed reactions some people develop, almost always concentrated in whichever color triggered the response. Red ink is the most common offender. The real risks come from the process itself, not necessarily from having a tattoo long-term. Infections from unsterilized equipment, allergic reactions to specific pigments. Some people are hypersensitive to certain inks and develop chronic inflammation years after getting tattooed. There are documented cases of people developing granulomas, small, hard bumps where the immune system essentially gives up trying to break down the material and instead builds a permanent wall of cells around it, sealing it off like a biological quarantine zone. These are rare, but they happen, sometimes appearing decades after the original tattoo. And then there's the MRI problem. If your tattoo is large or contains metallic pigments, getting an MRI can be complicated. MRI machines work by generating a powerful, rapidly shifting magnetic field, and metallic particles react to that field by heating up, in rare cases enough to cause a mild burn of the tattoo site during a scan. Most modern tattoo inks won't do this, but older inks and certain colors proceed with caution and tell your technician you're tattooed. This is actually the same underlying science behind laser tattoo removal, and it's worth pausing on because it reveals just how permanent this stuff really is. A removal razor doesn't erase the ink, it fires extremely short, high-energy pulses of light tuned to specific pigment colors, shattering the large ink particles that have been sitting in your skin for years into much smaller fragments. Those fragments are still there, they haven't gone anywhere. The laser has simply made them small enough for your macrophages to finally do the job they couldn't do the first time, engulf them and carry them away through the lymphatic system, the same system that had already been slowly accumulating them for years. Removal doesn't undo the invasion, it just gives your immune system a second, more winnable fight. Your body also changes your tattoo over time, independent of any removal attempt. Not just fading, though that happens. The ink particles migrate slightly. They break down and recombine. The resolution decreases as macrophages carrying pigment die and get replaced, spreading particles a little further with each cellular generation. After 10 years, your intricate line work has become slightly blurry. After 20, it's significantly softer. After 50, if you still have your tattoo, like Ötzi, on a much longer timescale, it's probably barely recognizable as its original design. Some people worry about getting tattoos before they're fully grown, and they should worry, but maybe not for the reason they think. It's not that the ink causes developmental problems, it's that your skin grows and changes, and that cool design you got at 16 might look weird when your skin stretches and ages. There's also the cancer question. It's the thing nobody wants to ask about, but everyone wonders. Can tattoos cause cancer? Current evidence suggests no. The International Agency for Research on Cancer has not classified tattoo pigments as carcinogenic. But, and this is important, long-term studies in humans are still relatively limited. The good news is that there's no biological mechanism we can identify that would cause tattoo inks to cause cancer. The bad news is that absence of evidence isn't exactly evidence of absence. What we do know is that your skin barrier changes after a tattoo. It becomes slightly more permeable. This means bacteria can more easily enter, but also means that substances applied to your tattooed skin might penetrate deeper than on untouched skin. Most of the time, this doesn't matter, but it's worth knowing. Here's something most people don't consider. Tattoo ink is not FDA approved. The pigments are regulated as cosmetics, not as medical devices or drugs, which means they haven't undergone the same rigorous testing as medications or implants. That's not to say they're dangerous. It just means the regulatory landscape is fuzzy. Some countries have stricter standards than others. The European Union banned dozens of specific tattoo ink chemicals in 2022 over safety concerns, while regulation in other regions remains much looser. Some inks contain heavy metals, others are much cleaner. Quality varies wildly, and as a customer, you generally have no way to independently verify what's actually in the bottle. The immune response to tattoos is so powerful and so consistent that some researchers are actually studying ways to use it therapeutically. Imagine injecting modified immune cells disguised as ink, deliberately provoking a targeted immune response against something like a tumor, or delivering medication slowly into the skin through the same mechanical process that deposits pigment, using the tattoo needle as a drug delivery system instead of a decorative one. Your body's reaction to tattoos, the very thing that makes them mildly unpredictable, might actually be something we can harness for medicine. So what's the actual verdict? Your tattoo is probably fine. Millions of people have tattoos and live perfectly normal, healthy lives. The health risks are real, but relatively small for most people, most of the time. The main dangers come from poor sanitation during the tattoo process, not from the tattoo itself. But your body is absolutely aware that you have it. Your immune system is constantly monitoring it. Particles are traveling through your bloodstream and lymphatic system right now. Your skin is processing something it wouldn't naturally encounter, using the same tools it would use against an infection. And we still don't fully understand all the long-term implications of this permanent alteration. We simply haven't had enough decades of rigorous study to know everything. Getting a tattoo is less like painting your body and more like inviting a microscopic civil war to live in your skin. Most of the time, everyone reaches a peaceful stalemate, but it's never truly peaceful. It's an ongoing negotiation between you and your immune system about this foreign material you've voluntarily embedded in yourself, one that, if Ötzi is any indication, can keep going for thousands of years. And that, genuinely, is kind of incredible. Your body adapts to almost anything, including permanent ink, which might be the most human thing we do. We don't just modify our environment, we modify ourselves.